All right, man. We're live. It
We're
is
live.
November.
That was so hesitant. You almost canceled the stream, and then you're like, "Never mind, we're live."
It's November 2nd, 2022. Notably, the hottest day in November in Minnesota in recorded history.
Rough.
Yeah. Breaking records. Let's go, dude.
We haven't broken a record like that, although it is still quite warm in
I
DC here
mean,
as
dude,
well.
weather records are being broken like left and right these days. So it's not even something to brag about. Uh, okay, so first on the docket, dude, you were the one that shared this video with me. The saltiest dog in MMA YouTubing,
All right, are you
and we're
sharing
gonna
it?
shit on him. Yeah, I'll share the screen. Let me pull up the
People
video
love him.
first.
I feel like I feel like I liked him before I saw this react. I didn't really watch much of him,
All
but
right,
I
so
know he has a good
let's just
reputation on
say
YouTube.
who he's at. So what we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
So do you want to preface this while I pull it up?
Well, I mean, he's a pretty popular MMA commentator on YouTube. His name is the MMA Guru. I haven't watched much of him. I haven't really watched any of him. I was honestly going to start watching more of him after this pay per view, this last pay per view with Charles Oliveira and Makachev headlining it,
So why were you gonna
because
watch more of
he
him?
was on he was on Sugar Sean's podcast. And I don't listen to Sugar
Hmm.
Sean's podcast either, but I just saw like that guy who I'd heard of, an MMA guru, and I saw like Sugar Sean's podcast pop up on my YouTube recommendations. They're strange because I barely ever watch it. And so I was like, all right, let's listen to it. And it was a pretty good conversation. I thought it was kind of cool that he told Sean O'Malley, just like to his face, I think you're going to lose. Kind of something you don't see
Oh, he
much from
said it to his
people on
face.
YouTube. Yeah, because you know how YouTubers like they're trying to be all chummy with all these people to grow their channel, but he wasn't. That was kind of cool. So I was
He's
like, you know
just
what?
a
Yeah, I'll listen to
British
this guy
guy that
more.
don't give a fuck.
Don't give a fuck. So I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'll try watching him a bit more. And then I saw like a clip. I saw like his reaction to the main event. First of all, I didn't. I heard that he picked Charles Oliveira, and frankly, if you pick Charles Oliveira, your credibility kind of goes down a lot,
Dude,
in my
okay, can we
opinion.
just talk about this? Because I feel like it's a pretty well known fact that wrestling beats jujitsu and MMA. And we have the most wrestling guy and the most jujitsu guy fighting each other. No matter what else
Exactly.
happens, that's all you really need to look at. And I just feel like every fucking analyst on YouTube that picked Mahachev is just deluding. They're like deluding themselves.
I know, dude. I know. Like, uh, it's pretty bad because, especially because people will concede to you that Makachev will get a takedown, which means they're getting to a ground in a favorable position for Islam, and yet they still think Charles is going to submit him. Like,
Right.
submitting someone off of your back is like three times as hard as submitting someone from a good position. That's the thing people don't understand. Like, it's not in jiu-jitsu, it might be closer to 50-50, although it's still not 50-50. In MMA with strikes, it's 80-20 for the guy on top, I would say, like four times more likely even. So, and then also just the fact that Islam is a very, very good grappler in his own right. It's like
It's on.
how good do you think Oliveira's grappling is? Like this, you're talking about like god tier grappling, man.
Right.
You're talking about much better than winning ADCC multiple times or whatever. Like you're talking just a new stratosphere of ability that Oliveira would have had to have. I mean, I guess the only thing people were going to say is maybe like Oliveira would clip him on the feet, and that would help him
Yeah.
hit the ground in a favorable position, and Islam would be, dazed.
About
But
that,
like
one more
that's
thing that
also
I heard,
so
dude, one more thing that I heard a lot from analysts that really made me like lose a lot of respect for them is them flat out stating Charles Oliveira has better striking than Islam. Because we haven't seen
right. We
Islam
haven't
getting
seen
pushed
any
to
of
the
it.
extent of his striking. that you can get like a full grasp on the limit of his striking game.
That's true. I mean, we haven't seen kind of the ceiling of Islam's striking for a
Like
long. I mean, we
obviously he
just
got
saw
knocked
him
out
get
like
knocked
eight
out
years
a
ago.
while ago. Yeah, a super long time ago. But ever since then, that was part of the difficulty of this fight, which is that there were several fights where we like didn't get to see any of Islam's striking. Certainly didn't get to see it kind of pushed to its highest extent. So it's really hard to say how good Islam would fare in the striking. And also, we haven't seen Charles striking in a long time where his opponents weren't super afraid of a takedown.
Right, exactly.
So like we weren't seeing a more neutral striking match from either guy where we could accurately assess their abilities for a long time. So it was kind of a difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
Plus, like I honestly really believe like some of Islam's fights, I feel like he was fighting in third gear, like or first or wait, what's the gear where it's not
Yeah,
very
just like
not
first
yeah
gear.
fuck first gear. Like when he was fighting
He was
Thiago
really getting
Moises.
pushed against Bobby Green.
Like no, but like against Thiago Moises, people, it was if it's think about it,
Dude,
it's very strange that Oliveira lasted 2 rounds and Thiago Moises lasted four. What is
well, okay,
Oliveira like?
even
No,
dude,
it's just because he
even
wasn't even
Arman
trying to fight.
Saryukian, like I feel like he wasn't really trying that hard in that fight. I'm
No,
not
yeah,
gonna
I mean,
lie.
there was just a
Or he
severe
wasn't
lack
going as
of
hard as he
urgency.
could.
There was a severe lack of urgency from Islam in a lot of fights in the UFC.
Yeah.
Oh, it kind of alarming to be honest. That might be a problem for him in the future because like he needs to show up into the ring ready. He needs to show up into the ring fully, kind of not underestimating his opponent, ready to go 100%. But he wasn't doing that for a while. I firmly believe that.
And
So
dude, that is kind of funny cuz like the I think two things were bothering me about this fight. Like going into the Charles Oliveira versus Islam fight. I was pretty confident Islam's going to win, but I had like two things that were holding me back a bit. One was the feeling that Islam might be overlooking his opponent, and I don't think that came to fruition because I mean, I think you're completely right. He needed to like hold his opponent in super high regard, and I do think he did that. And then the
yeah,
second thing was like the clinch situation. Like what did I say to you before this fight? The one thing that worries me is it once Islam like clinches up with Charles, Charles has shown a great ability against Poirier to
I
just like
know,
wear
but
people out in the clinch with knees and elbows and crazy
I wasn't
shit.
even
But then you're
like I
like,
didn't even think
okay,
that was a
but
problem.
Islam's clinch game is like
Yeah, exactly.
insanely good. And we saw that play
Islam's
out in the
clinch
fight.
game,
Dude, he got a
exactly.
fucking hip toss in a world title fight against one of the best
I know,
jiu-jitsu
dude.
guys of all time in MMA.
It's crazy because I really think that his clinch game, I mean, far better than Khabib's. Like against the fence, he's like
Oh,
far better
yeah,
than Khabib
way
against the
better,
fence,
dude.
standing against the
Dude,
fence.
Islam doesn't
And
go for double legs. It's
no,
crazy.
he goes for like the most low effort, like low energy expenditure takedowns ever. That's the thing. Like even if Khabib has better cardio, I think Islam is using like half as much energy in the octagon.
Yeah, dude. Even his ground and pound.
I mean, that's part of what people are responding to, right? Because like people view Khabib as this kind of mauling bear, so dominant, and Islam, they don't see Islam as that kind of dominance.
Right.
But I think it is the same dominance. It's just that Islam doesn't make it look hard. It's like in a magic show, like
Yeah,
magicians have to make their tricks look hard for their audience to respond. Like they have to look like they're struggling a little
right.
bit. It's like Islam doesn't look like he's struggling at all, so people don't respond the same way.
Yeah, I know. And like there's a couple of interesting, like, I would say, myths that analysts like to look to a lot that I've noticed. Both of which I think got, like, dispelled in this fight. One myth is, like, the myth of momentum. I swear people use
Yeah,
that
yeah,
all the
for sure.
time when they're just being lazy in their analysis. It's the myth of momentum, and people always talk about it. It's just like, oh man, I've been so wrong about Charles Oliveira, but now he has momentum, so I'm gonna choose him. It's like, no, that's not how fighting works. And if you actually think that's how fighting works, maybe you should like stop, just stop talking. And there's a lot of like pretty well respected guys in the MMA community and girls that like talk about momentum like it's a real thing. It's like, oh, he has momentum on his side. It's like, okay, dude, momentum is just saying you have God on your side. It's completely meaningless. And
Maybe it's a little bit. Maybe it's like a little bit of something to be said for your mental state, like your confidence.
well, that kind of brings me into the second point.
I feel like momentum matters less than the opposite, where you're just in a rut. You've lost like 5 in a row, and you're just like going in, almost
Okay, dude,
accepting like
that's
I
that's
can
a whole
take my
separate
shoe on.
conversation. But the
Like the
other
other way
thing that I
around
think
works
got
more.
dispelled is people being armchair psychologists and saying that, oh, Islam's feeling the pressure of this big moment. He's never had a moment as big as this before, dude.
Oh yeah, that
When
shit.
you're in the fucking UFC and it's your first fight, maybe you have like an adrenaline dump. But Islam's been main
Yeah, yeah.
event. He's been main event. Well, I don't. He's been scheduled for main event multiple times at least.
He was main event against Moises.
Okay, so he's main event against Moises and main event against Bobby Green. Not to mention the pay per view last year in Abu Dhabi where he fought Dan Hooker, which basically that card was designed for him to get like a signature win, and
Right,
like
exactly.
basically set him up for a title shot. So people saying that he hasn't had a moment like this before, are just like flat out lying, and B, it doesn't even matter. Let's be honest. Like
It doesn't
fighters
matter.
talk
Like
a
no, that's what
lot.
really matters.
Fighters talk a lot about like Ariel asks him all the time because Ariel's kind of like a WWE fanboy where he's like, "Oh, well, you're in the
Yeah.
Apex. Does that affect you?" And about like half of the fighters are just like, "Nah, it doesn't really matter. I
Yeah,
don't give a
exactly.
shit."
A lot of fighters at most are like, I would like a crowd 'cause it's fun. I like the
Right.
energy,
Most of
but
the
they're not like, oh my god,
most of the
I'm
fighters that
so
actually want a crowd just enjoy
lethargic.
it on the walkout because it like hypes them up. But
Right,
once you're in
and I can
there,
see it being
it doesn't
enjoyable.
matter
Yeah,
at all.
dude, Ariel is just a W. That's a problem with Ariel. He like
Yeah.
needs the event to feel big. He also buys into just like the whole like sports kind of culture, but whatever.
Right. And okay, and I think this guy, MMA Guru, who I've definitely seen around. I've seen his videos pop
Yeah,
up in
so
my feed.
yes, so I've seen his videos pop in my
I've never
feed. I was
watched
gonna
one of them though.
start. Me neither. I was gonna
I
start listening to him more after he showed up on the Sugar Sean show because I thought he sounded kind of interesting
dude, to be
in
honest
that
with you, I thought
podcast.
he was like Tim Pool. You know that guy that wears the
Yeah, I know
beanie
that
that
guy.
does like
Yeah, he does.
right
Yeah,
wing
the same beanie.
politics?
Well, because I really liked Jack Slack's podcast, and
The Australian guy?
is he Australian? I don't actually know.
Well, he talks with an
I
Australian accent, right?
I can't tell.
Jeez, dude. Oh my
Yeah,
god. You have no ear.
I thought it was
Anyway,
like
holy
British or
shit. Let's
something.
just start
Shit.
this fucking video. Jesus Christ.
Anyway, whatever. Let's see. Yeah.
Anyway,
This
this
guy
guy's
sounds
British,
like
so take all of his opinions with a grain of salt. He probably voted for Brexit.
They
sounds like
clinch,
super British.
and he's down
Yeah, he probably
immediately,
did.
rolled to bottom. This is big for Makachev here.
Oh yeah, this is like mid-fight.
Oliveira in full guard on bottom.
I'll just
Now
fast forward it to the
Oliveira, Makachev. He's tying up an arm here. See if he goes for it.
It would be fun to play the
He's going
fight.
to try and stack his legs up higher. His body triangled
During his
himself on
reaction.
bottom here, just to stay safe, I imagine.
It is funny, dude. You gotta listen to some of his reaction, so I like watch his entire reaction. I'll fast
He's
forward
so
it.
lifeless. It's
Yeah.
funny how lifeless he is, like watching the most insane
Dude,
fucking finish.
I'll fast forward it to the end of the round when Oliveira gets an up kick. You'll see him like come
From
alive, dude.
Makachev. Time him out. So I might go for an arm here. He's trying to tie up the hands. Oliveira, he rolls round. Oliveira.
Oh, here we go.
He scrambles round. He's going to look to roll for it. Oh, good up kick from Oliveira. Good up kick from Oliveira. And he rolls round. Oh my God, he's actually nearly got something. Oh my God, he nearly had a triangle at the end of the round. 1-0 Makachev though. 1-0 Makachev clear.
I don't
He
remember
actually
nearly
almost
having
had
a
it
triangle at the end of the
if there
round.
was a bit
It's
of
like,
time.
oh, he up kicked Makachev and
Makachev who
then
landed a
triangled
punch on
in.
him. Blind, actually coping, dude. You know, both guys
Anyway, let's
Punch
just
the
fast forward it.
dead, but good stuff. Though. Got a feeling he'll clip him. Go.
Oh, here we go.
Fights from now on.
Dude,
Jeff, I knew it
this
was
was
gonna happen.
this actually shocked me. Okay, like a pretty big analyst being this fucking like bitchy about his favorite fighter losing, dude.
Yeah,
And
let's
he's
listen
like,
to it.
okay, dude, holy shit, the British are bad. They're bad. He like makes so many like I just feel like he's about 5 to 10 like British internet culture is about 5 to 10 years behind American internet culture because he's like trying to be all edgy, making suicide jokes. He's like, oh, if Charles loses this, you have to like start a suicide hotline in Brazil. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna off myself if Islam just wet blankets him. It's like, dude, really? Like that's just not funny. You're just I don't know, man. He's just acting like an internet loser. Like I can't come up with a better term than that to describe him.
Yeah, he is. I don't know. He is. It's also strange
hand
because
from
I feel
Oliveira,
like if you're analyzing the sport and you're kind of so involved in it, you would appreciate the technique more.
Like he's talking to
you know?
extremely famous fighters. Yeah. And the other thing is, I guess like before we actually, I'll just let his reaction play.
Makhachev partially lands with an open glove. They're more just sort of crowding each other when they're in close like this. Jumping knee, but Oliveira gets dropped by Makhachev. I knew it was going to happen eventually after fearing the takedown.
Okay, dude, I have to pause it there. He says, I knew it was going to happen eventually after fearing the takedown. Oliveira did not fear the takedown. He did not you don't throw a flying knee at someone when you're fearing a takedown. He got dropped because his defense is trash. You don't just say that he was fearing the take. I don't think Oliveira was affected at all by Makhachev's takedowns.
I mean, he was also hit a couple times
He was
before
hit.
that knee.
Can you
and
think
he was,
of
I think, a
anything?
little bit panicking.
Like, dude, can you think of anything that Oliveira did because that you would ascribe to him fearing getting taken down by Makhachev? Oliveira initiated in the clinch multiple times. Both of almost all of those times he was taken down due to his clinch, like due to being in the clinch. And he's the one that initiated it. Makhachev never even went for like a double or a single leg takedown.
Yeah.
So like this is just copium, dude. He's like trying to blame Oliveira's loss on just like this nebulous thing of his fear of the takedown when it's just simple defense. Like when you throw a flying knee, keep your hand up or just don't throw a flying knee without setting it up better.
Half guard on top for Makhachev, looking for an arm triangle. Oliveira straightened his arm out though. This is reasonably tight, but I don't think good enough with half guard. Oliveira scrambles, but might give up his back.
Well, that's
he's
unfair.
tapped. Fuck. Makhachev wins. He wins.
Dude, how many times has Islam like arm triangle people though?
I know, but it is hard to get
I'm
from
pretty
half
sure
guard.
he
Dude,
arm
that's
triangled
what I was
Dober
saying.
from half guard.
Dude, he didn't even. He just like shoulder.
Yeah, he didn't
choked
even
him.
arm triangle Dober. Okay.
Yeah, but dude, that's what I was like just briefly mentioning while watching the fight. Like, wow, his squeeze must be so tight that Oliveira taps like within a second from an arm triangle from half guard. Like, generally that'll at least take a couple of seconds, bro. And then everyone in the comments was like freaking out, like, "Oh, clearly you don't know what you're talking about." Like,
I know,
green
dude.
belt
People
karate
were
kid,
roasting you
dude.
for no
People were-
reason.
Dude, that was such a retarded fucking take in the comments too. Like, especially
He's
I was
like-
literally talking to my jiu-jitsu coach, like from the gym I go to. I was like, we were talking about the main event, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, his squeeze is insane." Like everyone, whatever, man. They just pissed
So
me off.
dumb.
People, I don't know if these people train or not, but
I mean,
they
dude,
clearly
imagine
don't, frankly.
how strong he is.
They just don't. Like, they just don't. Like, you can survive for a couple seconds in an arm triangle. It's not like the tap was very quick. That was part of what I was.
know. Okay, let's continue.
Like, I just don't believe you have been arm triangles if you're saying that, I guess.
Yeah,
by
it
an
just
average
doesn't make it makes no it makes no sense to criticize you for saying that Islam has a tight squeeze. They're just like, you don't know. It's like no, he like we do know. We watch his fucking sport. Jesus Christ.
Might give up his back. Oh, he's tapped. Fuck. Makhachev wins. He wins. Boring fight forever. Dropped him.
Boring fights forever. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you call dominance boring, which it seems like he
It can
does.
be, I guess.
Because he's fearing the takedown.
Dominance can be boring. It's not
Boring
the
fight.
dominating
Oh, he's
fighter's
tapped.
fault, though.
Fuck.
Right. Okay, let's just listen
All
to
right,
his
let's listen
analysis
to it.
before I need to
I
actually
do think it's funny. It's
just
funny.
start
Yeah.
ripping into him.
Makachev
Kind of
wins,
sad,
he
too.
wins. Boring fights forever. Dropped him because he's fearing the takedown.
He wasn't fearing the
Boring
takedown.
fights from now on. That's sad. He tried to scramble, but he ended up giving up side control. Fuck. Wet blanket fests at lightweight. Another division dead, but good stuff from Makachev, man. Good win. Oliveira too hesitant to throw on the feet in round 2. Wouldn't let his hands go. Got
Threw a
clipped.
flying knee.
There you go. I told you at the start. I told you. I got a feeling he'll clip him on the feet.
Could have thrown more hands.
Boring fights forever. Inbred weight bullies win. Just cut more weight than everyone else. Thank you for the $5. Fixed. No, we'll see.
Oh,
Good
yeah,
stuff
the
from
whole
Makachev,
cutting
though.
weight
Cut
shit.
more weight than everyone else. Be inbred and just win. You got to do that. That's how it works. And get everything on your terms without fighting any top contenders, and get everything in your hometown, even though you're not even the fucking champion. Inbred.
This
Your
is
kid's
the
gonna have
part I
6
didn't
legs.
get
Thank you
understand.
for the $2. Who's beating Islam? No one. No one beats him. He's too big. Volk's going to move up. You have a 15-pound weight disadvantage. He's too small. He'll just
Okay,
get...
so I do need to pause it there. Like, I guess I just don't understand the. I can't relate to the sentiment of being angry that the best guy is the champion.
Exactly. To me, it bothers me when there's like a guy I know can beat almost everyone ahead of him, and he's like struggling to move up the ladder because of, bullshittery dodging from higher contenders.
Right.
To me, it bothers me when Colby Covington's the number 1 contender when he loses to both Burns and Makachev's and maybe even Leon. Like, it bothers me. All right.
Yeah, like I just don't understand why he's so mad that like, oh, no one can beat Islam. This division sucks. It's like, okay, so you wanted Oliveira to win even though you assumed he was worse than Islam, and now you're mad that Islam actually won? Like for
I don't
me,
know. I guess I just don't get it.
when I
Yeah.
come into fights, when I see a fight that I don't know who's going to win, I get excited by it because it's almost like a challenge to try to look at their like dissect their games and figure out who's going to win. I'm happy when I like accurately predict who's the better fighter. I don't choose who I'm rooting for and then I want them to win. Sometimes I do have like my favorite guys and I'm kind of disappointed. But I'm generally going to be happy if I think the better guy wins. Like Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. I like Masvidal's fighting style better. I was rooting for Masvidal. I picked Covington because Masvidal's kind of a shit anti-wrestler. And then when Covington won,
yeah.
I won't even say semi-disappointed. I'm just like, well, I mean, there you go. We
But
knew
yeah,
he was
you're
going to win
right.
because his game was better. I wasn't fucking
You're right.
salty.
It's pretty boring when you like know. It's kind of boring when you know what the results are. I mean, it's kind of like what Chael says. If the fight game runs on anticipation, it
Right.
runs on like who's gonna win, what's gonna happen. Let's anticipate this sweet fight that's about to happen, and let's talk about it. And you don't know for sure, but we're gonna discuss it to death, and then finally we're gonna get to watch it. It's kind of defeats the whole point when. But I guess maybe that's what he's saying. Like Islam's going to be such a dominant champ that none of the lightweight title fights are going to have the same level of anticipation. I mean, I can kind of see that. Like that's what happened to middleweight. To an
I
extent.
mean, yeah, but he's just like, I feel like this is the opportunity. Like, this is the time to be celebrating how good Islam is rather than saying how shit the division's going to be. Like, obviously there's some truth in what he's saying, but like his perspective is just so fucked based off of like where he's coming from that it comes off like this is the absolute worst time to bring that up.
But I also am just like I'm not counting out some of these guys coming up. Like I'm
Right,
not counting
also
out
not counting,
Saryuki
and I also don't think
Gamrot
Islam's a
and all
boring
these guys.
fighter. That's the thing. It's one thing to
Well,
be
yeah, it's the
Izzy,
thing,
where he's
exactly.
literally just like point fighting for 25 minutes,
Dude,
and
Islam's
he's
way
gonna
less
win
boring.
anyway.
Yeah,
Islam's
Islam had
finished
Oliveira
his last
rocked
like
multiple times. Yeah.
5 fights in a row. I think he's actually finished
exactly.
his last 5 or 6 fights in a row. He's on an 11 fight win streak at lightweight. I think the record is 12 the record is 13. Habib at 13.
Okay, well, solid. I mean, he's gonna surpass that, but like I'm not counting out a lot of these contenders coming up. I would count out like Chandler. I would call out Poirier. Count out Poirier.
Chandler's
but,
not
like,
a contender coming up. Okay, he's like
well,
there.
whatever. You know what I mean? Like he is a contender. I'm just saying, like, a lot of the contenders in lightweight division, I'm not even sure that Islam is 100% going to beat. I mean, I'm going to favor
I
Islam
mean,
in most
not to
cases, but
mention, there's like something just exciting about greatness and like
that's true.
how it elevates everyone around it. Like this is going to be
Yeah,
another
that's true.
step in the evolution of MMA. Like these
Exactly. Like
million
it's
dollar
kind of
camps
like
where the fighter is like every aspect of his game is great. That's like
right.
the next level.
It's kind of like what Fazib was saying. He was like, I don't even think about the belt. I just think about Islam. Because like even
God
before the
damn it,
Charles
dude.
and
That's
Islam
fucking
fight, he was like, I know he's gonna be a champ. I know it. I know it. I know it. All I need to do is beat Islam. That's what I
and that's
train
the
for.
right
That's what I like
mentality to
sleep
have.
for, and train for, and
I
wake up
think
for, and eat for.
Dariush
I
is
do that.
kind of
That's all
another
I do.
guy like that.
But he put it like it was such a cool way to think about it. Like, yeah, man, that's all. That's all. This is all I need to think about ultimately.
Yeah.
I train to beat Islam.
And it's
Kind
not
of like
like
it's kind of like the really cool stories with like Anderson Silva dominating, and then finally Chris Weidman, who wasn't
yeah,
even like necessarily that great of a middleweight, but just became like an
just
Anderson
like
Silva killer.
has his
It's
number,
sweet.
dude.
Yeah, it's just sweet, man.
And like yeah, there's dominance. It also so okay, he's going to go on to say like, "Oh, he never fought anyone and he got a title shot." Like he
Oh, but
got the
come
title
on.
shot on his terms. It's like, okay, so do you want to just see dominance that's just not in the title picture? Is that what you're saying? Like
Oh,
he's
so like he is scheduled several times and just things
right.
fell out. Like, come on.
I mean, he's
I
just
mean, how does it matter? How does it matter? Now he'll fight all those guys. Like, it doesn't
exactly,
really
dude.
matter. Like,
Like he would have
I don't
fought them
understand this
anyway.
criticism.
It's he's just
And
mad that Islam has a
but
belt, and that's
the fact
it.
that he dominated Oliveira proves he belonged in there. It proves like being those contenders now at this point they
I
don't
know.
prove anything more than what Islam has already done.
Yeah,
But anyway, let's listen up. Let's finish up listening to
yeah.
these.
Beaten. There you go. It was a good fight while it lasted, though.
So he calls Islam boring fights, and then he's like, "Good fight while it lasted." Okay.
All good, though. Got to cut more weight. Got to be too big. Got to be too strong. Oh, he tried to jump fucking knee and got clipped. Went to his back. Oh, well. Thank you for the $2. Who angered the MMA gods today? I don't know. They just got to ruin the sport with these boring fucking inbred fucking cliff dwelling retards.
Dude.
Cut more weight, you know. Thank you very much for the $5. I appreciate you.
Well, the cutting weight thing is such a myth too. Like Khabib has discussed his walking around weight, as has Poirier and all these guys,
Yeah.
and they all actually walk around at about the same weight.
I mean, it's just
I
shocking
think
to me that he's not giving Islam any props for what he's doing.
right,
He's
right.
literally just saying, "Oh, Charles was afraid of the takedown, and that made his striking suffer. And Islam is heavier than Charles, so his wrestling is automatically better." It's like, no, dude, you do realize that Islam like literally trains with the best wrestler that has ever done MMA, right? Like,
Right.
does
Right.
does he realize that? Like at this
Well,
point,
I don't know where the weight cutting thing comes from. I guess Khabib missed weight a couple times, and that's why I think that narrative started for Khabib. But like Islam hasn't even missed weight.
like Islam cuts a lot of weight, but so does everyone.
But
It's part of the
all these guys
sport.
cut a lot of weight. Like, have you seen Chandler on the scales?
Like
That's frightening. Like, there's some people who look frightening on the scales, much worse than Islam. Like
Oliveira,
Chandler on the
Oliveira
scales
cuts a lot of
looks
weight.
stupid. Like I know, even Oliveira, but like Chandler's the worst for me, frankly. Like just because
Yeah,
he's so
he looks
muscled
like
that
a
when he's
completely different
dehydrated, he
looks
looks
like
like
a
fucking
completely
beef
different
jerky,
person.
man. He looks crazy, and his eyes get so sunken in. Like I don't know, man. You saw like, but whatever, man. We've seen so much egregious weight cutting from so many people. I just, and it's just regardless. It doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't even make any sense. It's a competitive sport. This is
Yeah.
part of the sport. Okay, you have to accept that. Your ability to cut weight is actually going to be part of your success, just like your ability to take steroids correctly, frankly. But
I mean, dude, at this
we don't want to
point,
get into
like
that.
it doesn't even it goes at this point he's going from like bias towards Charles Oliveira to just being biased against Islam and just Dagestanis in general, which really just makes me question some of his values. Like he's not even being an MMA analyst at this point. At this point, he's like on the verge of just being racist, and that's it. Like he's
Oh, the whole
calling,
like
he's just saying like
inbred
inbred
and stuff.
mountain retards. It's
Yeah,
actually
that shit was.
disgusting. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
actually just a disgusting take in like the sport of MMA where your performances should speak for themselves. Like in a perfect world, he would be giving Islam props for being the best, and he's just
Man,
shitting on him, calling him
how
like a
can you?
weight bully.
I don't like understand the whole racist
I mean,
thing in
dude, he is
MMA.
British.
Like,
Like, let's be honest. He voted for Brexit. He's probably extremely anti-immigrant. Dude, look at him, bro. Fucking literally has a neckbeard beanie, living in a dark room by himself. Like
well, it's just so crazy when you have such like a negative opinion of other races as an MMA fan because it's
I
the most
know.
diverse sport in the world. It's the most diverse sport in the world by a long shot. It's truly a global sport. You got people from all over the world, crazy rural, middle of nowhere places, all the way to like urban areas in the U.S. all fighting against
That's
each
the
other.
coolest aspect of the
That's the best
sport.
part about it.
Dude,
Yeah, and
literally
you
the
get to
reason
see
I
their
got into
cultures.
this
They're
sport is because Zhang Weili was fighting Joanna Jędrzejczyk in their first fight, and they did this awesome promo of how she was using like how she uses like Tai Chi to like relax her muscles and meditate. She's like flowing in the park and like paying homage to traditional Chinese martial arts while also like fusing that with like current MMA knowledge. And that just was so cool to me because I'm like, this is a crazy sport. You have this Polish woman who's
yeah.
like a model, an Instagram model, versus like this Chinese, just like pure martial artist, just like working in traditional dojos and shit.
Well,
Like,
dude, like a similar thing. Like I guess I got in the sport from the Khabib, Conor McGregor
oh
fight. Like
yeah,
even when it was well after it happened, but that's when I started learning more about Dagestan and like Russians, the Russian tradition of wrestling. And I was like, oh my god, these people are monsters. And you see them in the
right.
cage, and they're like implementing kind of everything they've learned from, when they started learning 3 years old, and then they're just wrecking. Like I was
And the
like,
video of
whoa, this
Habib
is a whole
literally
society
wrestling a
organized
bear.
around this. Yeah, oh yeah, that's exactly what it was. I was like, holy shit, they've literally been raised to do this. This is crazy. I mean, that's the coolest part of the sport, man. I don't know. If you don't appreciate that, I don't know what to tell you, man. You're missing out on the best part of the sport. And the problem is, okay, I just honestly, the Americans in the sport are just boring. Like all of them come from collegiate wrestling,
I know.
so the pipeline is just such where you don't know any cool submission on the ground. You don't have any finishing instinct.
Yeah, dude,
It's
he's
literally just
calling
taking people down, mat returning them, and controlling them. Like that's their whole game. But like,
like he's calling the Russian wrestlers boring, and then like it completely ignoring the American wrestlers.
and just cool because like all these Russian wrestlers in MMA, they're Olympic rejects. So they like kind of have to give up a little bit of like the traditional wrestling and like kind of learn all these other things. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know,
dude.
man. I feel like you're just missing out on the best part of the sport if you're not appreciating
I
that.
mean, this was a fight a lot of
Ultimately,
people were invested in, so I'm sure he's not this salty after every fight, but this was just a bad look. And dude, here, I'm gonna share this with you too. I was looking through the comments because I'm like, oh, this was weird. The comments are tearing him apart, dude. So first of all, I noticed in
oh yeah,
his chat was really like being pro Islam, or at least the chats that he was reading were being pro, or they were being pro Charles, which
sure,
makes sense. Like people that are chatting, people that are donating are going to be closer to him in the channel.
right,
Um,
right.
but if we scroll down the comments section, dude, look at these comments. I told you, bro, you literally backed Charles the full time. This is the timestamp. This is the face of a broken man, abused, humiliated, and laughed at for 6.5 hours straight. Dude is trying his hardest to act like he doesn't want to end his life. After this UFC 280 event, I
Well,
think
dude,
we need to start the MMA Guru support group. Uh,
he looked
he
so
doesn't deserve to
dejected
this
after
fight. He's
Charles
fought
tapped.
nobody. Dude, his audience is literally just like roasting him. So I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if these people aren't his usual audience and they're just like tuning in. But I feel like most people aren't just gonna tune into his actual live stream to watch his reaction just to shit on him. I feel like that's his actual audience, and he just had a horrible look. Like
I
to
don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't know, like, the whole people who are like, how did you not want to see this fight? Like, if you still were saying the whole, I don't think Islam deserves it, I just don't think, I just refuse to believe you watch the fights. I just think
right,
you follow the storylines and you, like, look at the numbers of who they fought. Just, like, literally just look, ranking. And then that's how you decide.
right. I know.
It's like,
Ugh,
are you watching this guy, dude? He's insane. He's churning through these guys like butter, man. Like, he's just fucking wrecking these dudes.
dude. Yeah, I don't think he's lost a round since he got knocked out. And
Exactly.
technically, did he even lose that round since it didn't get scored?
It's true.
Is he Habib, dude? Never lost a round? Literally better than Habib because he's like
Never been
actually
caught.
never lost a round.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, Khabib can's gonna be cringy too, but the biggest thing I want to see from Islam is to separate, is to have a. I just feel like Khabib is literally always around him. The thing where Khabib had the mic after his win was a bit much for me. I feel like that was because he's not
Yeah.
making his own name.
I mean,
He's just
Islam kind
cementing
of saved
his.
it by like saying, "Oh, where is this short guy? Bring him in here." Like that's
I
pretty
don't know
good.
why did Khabib do the call out though? Like, Khabib was the first guy who talked about Volk
Dude,
in
Habib
Perth.
is like he's taking on the role, and this is completely according to according to Ariel Hawani's depiction, but like of the manager of like the wrestlers in WWE, where like the wrestlers
Oh, I see.
themselves can't talk well, but the managers are like these small, wiry, mousy type guys that just like trash talk, and then they like call the
I
wrestlers to
mean,
like look imposing behind them.
that would work if Khabib himself weren't also considered a lightweight goat. That's a
Yeah,
problem.
true.
Like, I just feel like he sucks the air out of the room a lot for Islam, and Islam can't connect with the audience very well. And I mean, I just also just like the whole narrative of him only getting the shot because he's associated with Khabib, and Khabib's doing everything for him. He's paying for his camps. He's like
Yeah. I mean, I
basically just his
definitely see what
daddy.
you're
Like,
saying, but
that's a little bit. I feel like I'm just talking about his ability to connect with the audience right now.
I guess
That's
what
what
I
I
would
think.
have to say is like I don't think it matters that much. But like,
I
you
mean,
know,
now
it'd
that
be
he's champ, it
nice to
matters
see.
less. Now that he's champ, it probably matters less. But let's be real, like, connecting with the audience is super important in this sport. In
Yeah.
terms of, if you lose the title, he's gonna have to work his way up for rematches and stuff. If he also, just when people are rating your legacy, it's part of it's his popularity. Part of it's how
I
well
mean,
you
true.
connect with the audience.
All right, dude. We went from UFC 280. Let's skip a week into the future, and let's just talk about Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul.
Oh God.
Let's rip this band-aid off.
Man, that was
So
a rough one.
Anderson Silva. Okay, so I listened to Morning Combat. BC is kind of a boxing guy. He said he had the fight scored 4 rounds to 4 going into the last round. And then, although I guess that doesn't make sense because there are 8 rounds. So how do you have it 4-4? I don't know. Who cares? Anyway, like, is kind of close
Yeah,
up until the knockdown.
dude, it was kind of close, but I thought that Jake was taking over the latter half of the fight pretty clearly.
Yeah, me too.
It was very
So
strange. It seemed like Anderson Silva was taking the first round off with the strategy
and
of
then he
like
still
taking him in
gassed out.
deeper, but he was the one who seemed worse in later
Yeah,
rounds. So it seemed maybe he should have done the opposite. Maybe he should have come
I
out
mean,
quicker
dude, apparently
and tried
people
to
are saying
hunt for
like
the knockout.
that was a
Knockout.
really fun boxing fight. I'll take their word for it. Um, I just don't want to see a bad boxing fight if that's the case. I also don't even want to see another fun boxing fight. Show me the best boxing fight of all time, and then
Yeah, I
I'll
don't know how
watch
you boxing fans do it, man. I honestly have respect for you. Like, you must be fucking dedicated to
it.
this sport. Crazy, dude. The thing, it's just MMA, dude. MMA is such a more dynamic sport.
Dude,
Like,
okay, who cares? Jake
whatever,
Paul,
fine,
who do you want
fine,
to see
fine.
him fight next?
Fight, dude. Just fight. Oh my god,
Okay, let me ask you. Let me change
fight
it. Let
him.
me change that question. Who would you? Which of his potential opponents would you actually watch? Like if you're like, oh, it's a Thursday night. Jake Paul's fighting. I'll throw it on. Let
Dude,
me just run through the
I'm
names.
gonna watch this fight.
Tommy Fury. I think that's his
Yeah.
name, Tommy Fury. Would you
Yep.
watch
Yep.
it live?
Yes.
Okay, I
No,
would.
live. I don't know, but I'm watching it.
I mean, if it's like a Wednesday night, you don't have
Yeah,
anything
sure,
to
whatever.
do.
As long as nothing's conflicting. Yeah, okay,
Okay,
fine.
I see. I literally would not turn that fight on. I'd rather watch like some kind of
Oh, come on.
YouTube video
Dude,
of a guy like shooting
here's the
himself in the head or
thing.
something.
I don't know. You say that, but he always makes it interesting. He always makes it
Dude, I
interesting. He
didn't
always
watch
does
the
some
second Woodley
stupid
fight.
bet. Okay, I didn't either, but there wasn't enough build up to it. He always makes some stupid bet. He always, dude. I wasn't even gonna
Okay,
watch
let's
this
just
Anderson
keep going
Silva
down the
fight.
list. Tommy Fury, you'd watch.
I'd watch it. Yeah. Plus,
Um,
yeah, there's just been enough build up to it now. Like there's been the
Nate
canceled
Diaz
fight, all that stuff. No,
in
God,
boxing.
I don't. Depends how good the press conference.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
okay,
would
fine.
watch the shit out of that. Come
It
on,
would be
bro.
really bad. It would be a
It'd
bad
be Nate
boxing
Diaz
fight.
getting TKO'd, like standing
But it would
TKO.
be, dude, it would be atrociously bad. Like
Yeah, it'd be
whatever,
horrible.
it would be a terrible fight. I mean, at least yeah, okay,
But
whatever. It's
maybe some of
literally
the
Jake
Nate
Paul.
Diaz fans would like
It's
stop
literally
being
Jake
so
Paul versus
annoying.
a worse opponent. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, worse
Maybe
opponent
it's a
than
good.
Silva.
The press conference would be good. Maybe whatever.
Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, because I think because I want to see either of those guys lose, but I want to see an actual like it can't be exhibition bullshit.
Right,
Like it
yeah,
has to be an
exactly.
actual like they can't do the thing where they fight to a decision, which is inevitably going to happen, and no, there's no winner.
Dude,
Like, I will actually, and that will actually determine whether or not I watch it. If
dude,
there's no winner or whatever, I'm not going to watch it.
Paul said he would get down to 175 and Mayweather could get up to 165 and then the commission would sanction it. I would watch that a lot.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay. Out of those three, which are
yeah,
you
let's
most
see.
interested in?
Nate, fuck, dude. It all just really depends on his marketing. I guess I'll say, you know what? I guess I'll say Tommy Fury. Actually, it might be a hot take, but it's a natural progression.
I mean, you'd see
He
him
needs
knock
to-
Tommy Fury out.
Tommy Fury is okay. Are we just admitting because like his only criticism at this point is like he hasn't fought a young boxer, right?
Well, dude, apparently Tommy Fury sucks at boxing. That's the problem.
Do they suck at boxing? I mean,
Yeah, that's what
how
everyone
bad did he suck?
says. I
He's
was
part of
listening
the
to Morning
Fury
Combat.
family.
Both of them picked Jake Paul to like knock Fury out.
Okay, what about that other guy he was gonna fight that got canceled? Hasim
Rock, I don't think he'd
Rockman
fight him
Jr.
again. The guy literally said like, "Oh, I'm on weight," and he was like 20 pounds over or something.
What the fuck? All right. Well, can we just set him up versus? I mean, look. I'd say the only interesting part of the Jake Paul experiment is.
Is him versus MMA guys.
Well, I was gonna say how far he can get, right? Like, there's a natural progression
Dude.
of skill level. I want to see how far he can get.
Okay,
He fought a
after listening
YouTuber.
to Morning Combat and after listening to Ariel Helwani's show when he interviewed him, I am sincerely doubting his goal is to become the best boxer. I am really doubting that.
No, I don't even care what his goal is. It's interesting to see how far he can get. Like, is boxing really such a terrible sport that Tommy Fury, who's like the son of a famous boxer, the brother of a famous boxer, training his whole life, still gets beaten by a guy who's been like just the years of training matter, right? Or no?
I don't
Or
think
no?
he's
Am I
been
wrong?
training
Am I
seriously
wrong
though.
about
He was
that?
on like a TV show. He was on like Love Island or something.
Okay, but I mean, still, I'm assuming has he not been? I thought he said he's been training since he's a kid.
I don't know,
like,
dude.
he
Tommy
grew up
Fury
in the
kind of
boxing
sounds like a
ring.
dumbass. Jesus Christ. I listened to him on Ariel's show. Did you hear
Look,
that interview?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
It was so bad.
it was pretty bad. I mean, he said the generic shit. Like I'd knocked these boys both out in the same round, same night. The first time I hit him, whatever, all the boring shit. But like, let's. My only point of reference is jiu-jitsu. Once again, there is no chance, assuming the two guys are similar sizes, and even then, even if they're different sizes,
Yeah.
that one guy who's been training for 10 years versus another guy who's been training for 2 years, the guy
Like 5
who's training for
years at
10
this
years.
point.
Okay, Well, no, but I'm just giving you an example. Like
All
Tommy
right.
Fury's been training for more than 10 years. He's been training apparently his
Okay.
whole
Okay.
life, right? Okay.
He said he's been
So
around boxers his whole life. It's like
what
he
does that
picks shit
mean?
up through osmosis, I guess.
Okay. Well, if he hasn't really been like training since he's a kid, then that's different. But okay, in jiu-jitsu, like 10-year guy versus 2-year guy. 10-year guy is gonna win every time. Like every single time. I don't even care
Unless
how
you're like
small
bigger
you
than
are.
him.
But even then it's so difficult, dude.
Okay,
Like
I
I've
guess
seen
10-year is like black belt
that's a
level or like
huge
brown
difference.
belt
Like, if
level.
you're a black belt, like it's crazy. Like that's a different level. All right.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, I actually like literally saw my because like my
Okay,
jiu-jitsu coach who's a
dude,
purple
stay on
belt,
track.
same
Jesus
size.
Christ.
Okay, fine. You're right. You're right. So my only question is boxing not like that? Has anyone leave a comment? If you're a boxer, is boxing not like that? Is boxing not like you train for 10 years, you're gonna win 100% against a guy who's been
Dude,
training for
I
2
don't
years?
fucking know.
Does that
Okay.
does the
I
sheer amount of time spent in the ring not matter to you guys? Because if
dude.
so, then I don't give a fuck about your sport. Like it makes no sense to me.
Dude, okay. So dude, Jake Paul literally called boxing an art in his interview. I'm like, oh my god, pick up a fucking paintbrush. Okay, no, but dude, the thing is this. The thing is this. I was thinking about this like the other day. Jake Paul is actually a fucking genius because this is what he's doing. He's picking at a much more popular sport than boxing, right? I honestly think Jake Paul doesn't give a shit about boxing. He's focused on MMA. He said Anderson Silva was like his childhood hero. He's obviously an MMA fan. He keeps targeting Dana White, the president of the UFC, which is the biggest MMA company like in history. He's going after aging MMA legends, Tyrone Woodley. People literally put him on like the welterweight Mount Rushmore. Like he literally has some of the most welterweight championship defenses out of all of the champions. He was actually like a great champion. He had a great run up to being champion.
Right.
Anderson Silva, widely regarded as GOAT. Ben Askren, honestly, like one of the most controversial and famous fighters from the past 5 years. He's taking all of these guys out, and he's doing it so smartly. He's getting them when they're a little bit past their prime, but they still have name value. And then he's taking
Yeah.
away about, I would say, 75% of their skills into an area, into like this slim margin that he actually
Right.
has a chance of beating them. Dude, he's just an MMA fighter that doesn't want to do the hard work of MMA. Can we just like be honest about that? He's going to
I
keep
mean,
picking at MMA
one
fighters
way
that
to
the
look at
UFC
it.
discards until he just gets tired of it. Or he
Well, and
eventually transfers to MMA.
those are all high like low risk reward matchups, I guess. Really high reward to
Right.
really low risk
Because they're all
because of the
super
name
famous.
value.
Okay,
Yeah.
getting knocked out by Ben Askren would suck. But
No, I
he's
know, but
pretty
there was
favored
so
to win
little
that fight.
risk, and once again, Ben Askren has a name. He's somewhat big enough. You know, you have to, in terms of the pool of opponents, it was a good one, especially for as early in his career as it was. So, I mean, but I will also say, like when you look at Jake Paul's career, there's a clear progression. There is a clear progression from opponent to opponent, from like Askren
Right,
to
right.
Woodley 2 to Silva. So I have no problem with it if he continues that progression. He's never said I'm a really, really good boxer and I'm fighting the best guys who
I
are
mean, he
willing to
did
fight me.
call
Like
out
that's not what
Canelo.
he says. Okay, now, yeah, didn't before. The thing is, like, he's honestly been pretty honest in his marketing. That's like the one thing I'll say. He's always just said, "Look, I'm just getting into the sport. I'm not." He even said when he was talking to that manager dude, Eddie Hearn, like, "I
Hmm.
I'm not at the level to fight Canelo yet, but I'll fight a guy who's has like 10 fights. You know, for like an undefeated guy with 10 fights on your roster. Like he's just saying, look, let's just see how far I can take this. I'm new to the sport, and I'm just going to keep fighting guys. I'm going to keep fighting guys who are close to my skill level,
Dude,
and let's just see where this goes. And that's totally reasonable. I think that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that.
can I just say
Let's just see how far it goes.
before we end this segment,
It's very
there are
honest.
two endpoints. I don't really care about Jake Paul's next fight, but there are two endpoints that I would be happy with this little story arc of his.
Mhm.
One endpoint, he fights Canelo and beats Canelo. Okay, that's one endpoint.
That would be That would be legendary. Like you.
Dude, that
That
would
would be
literally mark the end
legendary.
of boxing. I think that would mark
I
like
hope so.
Canelo's the most famous boxer there is right now. Famous active boxer there is. If Jake Paul beats
And
him,
widely considered to be like one of the best, like
and Jake
just
Paul's
all around.
bigger than
Yeah.
Canelo too. Like Canelo
Is he?
lost to what is that? What is that guy's name? I don't even know.
I forget what his name is. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Golovkin
about.
or something. Canelo lost to a guy that was bigger than him. If Jake Paul like fights him, dude, in a few years maybe he's skilled enough. I don't fucking know.
But that would be crazy.
I mean he beat
Let's
Anderson
just be
Silva.
that would be insane. Because that would just prove like that would prove the whole thing where people say it's an art, there's a purity to it, takes skill, it's not brawling.
It's like
That's
bullshit.
wrong. Like it's no skill apparently, because if it were truly a skill-based sport, Canelo would be
no skill. If
like,
Jake Paul beats Canelo, boxing has no skill whatsoever.
but seriously, how would that be possible if it's a skill-based sport? Like,
Dude,
I
I
don't
don't like. There's
I
not.
don't
I
get
don't
it.
think there's that much. I think there's skill. I just think that like the ceiling you
Okay,
reach.
well, whatever.
I think there's
Yeah,
a low ceiling.
I guess if the skill is so easily attainable that in 5 years you're beating like world champs or whatever.
Dude, Anderson Silva literally beat a world champ in boxing. Obviously, he's past his prime, but Anderson Silva is too.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Anyway,
I know, dude.
I think that there's like a ceiling level of skill, and then after that, it's just like genetics. That's like your variables. Anyway, that's one end goal. The other end goal, transition to MMA. Lose a boxing
It's
fight.
too hard. It's just too hard. I don't even want to like.
No, but he could do the
MMA
same
is-
thing where he fights older MMA guys. Old MMA
No,
guys
yeah,
need
he could
paydays.
he could cherry pick matchups, but
You would
I don't know,
literally
man.
give
I'm
his
just not
like whole
interested.
shtick a new life.
Maybe I would be interested,
And
but
dude,
like
honestly, like it's definitely
old guys
hard.
boxing, dude. Old guys boxing looks way more like good boxing. It's way closer to the high levels of
Like
boxing
old guy
than
wrestling.
old guys doing MMA.
Yeah, that's true.
Old guys doing MMA looks terrible.
But
Just
dude,
visually, it
also,
looks
like-
like not even close to what you want to see.
If he starts training MMA, like, yeah, I guess he's kind of old for like to start training MMA. But dude, he has enough money. Like he could just do $1 million training camps and actually kind of be good.
Oh, for sure. Dude, for sure. And I mean, once again, if he cherry picks his matchups correctly, it could be fine.
Dude,
but
he
like,
starts his own MMA organization. That'd be crazy. That would actually be
crazy.
the craziest. Like,
well, dude,
wait.
also like, I really do want to see him start an fighter union with Anderson Silva. I feel like people weren't talking about that enough after.
I mean,
the
Ariel
fight.
asked him once, and he kind of like brushed it off. He's kind of like, "Oh yeah,
I
we
know,
talked about
I know.
it."
That was weird. Like, you would think Ariel was on top of that shit. Like,
Yeah,
always
I don't know why.
consistently.
I think it's just like he's, I don't know, the relationship might be strained. He was kind of criticizing Jake Paul after Jake Paul said some bad things about Rockhold Costa. Anyway, dude, that wasn't the only fight that there was last week. We also had Calvin Kattar versus Arnold Allen. And I kind of want to talk about this. So, people are saying, I think the biggest question that came out of that fight, other than just like the skill level of Arnold Allen versus Calvin Kattar, kind of like the meta question surrounding the fight is, should Calvin Kattar have come out to fight in the second round? And I've been thinking about it a lot. I feel like people are okay with it, but I feel like the only reason they're okay with it is because Calvin Kattar literally took one hit and then the fight was finished after that. But if like Calvin Kattar had come out, his mobility was like greatly diminished, which it was. We just didn't really get to see the effects of it. And then Arnold Allen just like pins him up against the fence and knocks him out, similar to a fight we saw like literally earlier in that night with oh fuck, what's that guy's name?
Phil Haas.
Yeah, oh yeah, Phil Hodge versus Roman Dolidze, where Roman Dolidze gets him in a heel hook, literally pops his knee, and the ref's like, I see no problem with this. Let's let it continue. Like, it's
Man,
called
that's
a
cool.
submission for a reason, guys. And then
Yeah,
Roman
you can do.
Dolidze
Yeah.
is like, okay, I guess I'm gonna finish him, and he just walks him down, hits him with like a power left hook, kind of wobbles him, and then knocks him out cold against the cage. It's like that did not need to happen.
Well, the problem is like even if you're like, okay, he didn't tap, he's technically still fighting. It's not my job to stop it. It is your job to stop it after the first clean punch. That's my opinion. At that point, you as a ref can make the call like, yeah, he's close enough to a standing TKO or whatever.
So
When
people are
when Phil Haas is doing the Bambi dance against the fence, getting like 5 clean punches and then straight knocked out after getting his knee blown out, like that was unnecessary. That was just unnecessary and like, fuck,
yeah.
man. Now
I
like
mean,
it's this is
Herb Dean did a great job stopping that fight as soon as Cater was dropped.
yeah, he actually did. It's funny.
But
It's like the
the thing
first
is,
time I've
like,
seen.
The Phil Haas knockout, the Roman Dolidze knocking out Phil Haas. The problem was that was like it was almost too quick for the ref to jump in because it's literally like wobbled him, pressed him up against the cage, landed like a 3-hook combination that put him clean out. There's
Yeah, I
not
think he could
much
have.
the ref can do there.
I
In
think
my
he could have stepped
opinion,
in before the finishing blows, but I also think it was the corner's responsibility.
right.
It wasn't. If you want to talk about responsibility, not like what the ref should have done, but what he had to do. The ref didn't have to stop the fight there because Phil Haas was fighting. Phil Haas did not tap, and he was standing on his feet and he was throwing punches, even though he couldn't even plant his feet. The corner, however, should have seen that. Should have said, "Yeah, like this guy literally
Throw in the
can
towel.
barely stand," and throw in the towel. Like that's the whole. That's the area where the corner is the one whose responsibility
Exactly.
it is to step in.
I'm not
Dude,
even
you already
necessarily.
know Phil Haas is gonna. First of all, Haas has a long recovery ahead of him. The heel is knee.
Dude, he's
The
fucked.
more he's,
Add
the
the
more he's.
concussion on top of that.
Well, yeah. Also, like even if you didn't know he was gonna get knocked out like that, the more he's walking around on it and trying to throw punches on it, the worse his knee's gonna get. That's the
Right.
moment where you got to take his knee, ice it up, get
Like
it looked at, and do the right
how many fights do
things.
we need to see people struggle? Like how many fights do we need to see people take fight ending injuries essentially and still
Yeah.
struggle until the end of the fight before people start taking these injuries more seriously? And I think this is like a symptom of the immaturity of the sport where people are just still
Yeah.
being much too short-sighted. They're like, "Oh, we can tough it out for the rest of this fight." Look at what happened with TJ Dillashaw, dude.
But
He
it's the
got
same
his
shit in
knee
boxing too.
destroyed by Corey Sandhagen, and his corner's like, "Fuck it, just keep going." He even won that fight. Congratulations to him. Corey Sandhagen is literally the one to get the next title shot. He was out for like a year
I
because he
know.
got
Yeah.
his knee fucked up. Why? Like, it's actually just mind-boggling how bad of a decision it is to send your fighter back out there. Look at Thiago Moises. That his fight against John Jones, where he blew out both of his knees, literally ruined his
Santos.
career.
Yeah.
And you have like MMA analysts kind of like ho humming about it, saying like, "Oh well, is
Yeah.
like the biggest moment of his life. He should deserve to go
But
out on
I
his
can
shield."
no, but I can understand it for title shots. Even not even number one contender fights. Like I can understand it when the stakes are high enough.
I mean, I guess title shots is
If you
life-changing
asked
money, but that's
any
also a
fighter,
life-changing injury.
if you ask any fighter in the UFC, you can give up the rest of your career to win a title shot. I think a lot of them would say yes. I think most of them would say yes. That's their. I mean, that's fine.
I
That's
know, but
their.
dude, it's not
I
even giving
understand
up the
that.
rest of your
It's greatness.
career. It's literally causing like life-altering damage to your body that's going to stick with you until you die.
Dude, they went into MMA for a reason, man. Come on, like that's not what they're thinking
For
about.
money.
I mean, they don't care. Like for title shots, I get it. I'm not gonna criticize some fights. Even the TJ Dillashaw fight, it's like unclear to me. But Phil Haas, thing with Phil Haas was like he couldn't defend himself really because he couldn't throw any punches.
He couldn't
Every time he
move.
threw a punch, his back leg was flipping out.
Right.
So at that point, you can't defend yourself. Like you defend yourself defensively using punches. So if you're not doing that, just call it in. I mean,
I mean,
I do think the ref could have stepped in sooner. Whatever.
dude,
I
my
mean,
whole point is we have
there's a
fights
balance.
stopped.
I just think there's a balance. I also don't think it's purely about the immaturity of MMA because I mean, there's like the really famous Deontay Wilder example where like his corner threw in the towel, relatively recent, in a super old sport, and like
Yeah,
it still
but I mean, in
causes
general,
controversy.
boxing throws in the towel much more than MMA does. Um, I
Does
just
it like
think
on rate? I don't know.
I just think that we need like we already stop fights when it comes to
Yeah,
fight ending submissions, even if the fighters don't tap. Like if your fucking arm gets dislocated, the ref will
yeah,
stop the fight. I think if your
exactly.
knee gets destroyed, the ref should stop the fight also.
Like I think Phil Haas's knee was about as bad as like your arm getting dislocated
Like fair enough
in
if you
terms of
can
the
hide it.
usability of the limb.
If you can hide
Yeah,
it and
you
you
can
can
hide it
fight
something.
to a level where it doesn't even necessarily look like your arm or your knee is dislocated. I mean, we see hands getting broken in MMA all the time and fighters still using that. But that's not the same as like getting an injury that completely takes out a limb. And I think the
Yeah, yeah.
refs and corners should be much more willing to just stop fights when we see injuries like that happen.
I think you have to take the stakes of the fight into account, the probability of the fighter actually being able to win, and just how much of their career they have left. Phil Haas has like the least, it was like zero in all those categories. No
Yeah.
stakes in this fight. Very young fighter, and
Dude,
like
that's
zero
crazy.
probability
That's
of
actually
him winning.
crazy. Yeah,
So that's
especially like
why,
also take their opponent into account. It's like, oh yeah,
yeah, yeah, true.
what's the worst Roman Dolidze can do? Like destroys other fucking knee and then knock him out? I guess that'd be the
Yeah,
worst.
like fighting in like a pretty big division where the shots are powerful.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
know, man.
whatever. What is going on with the injuries in the main events though?
Dude,
Like
it's crazy.
Blades Aspinall, this one, Yair
It's
Rodriguez
literally
versus Brian
people just putting
Ortega.
off surgery or like pre-existing injuries getting exacerbated. I mean, Calvin
Ganu.
Cater wasn't that. Ngannou like put off surgery and he did the fight instead of getting surgery. TJ Dillashaw did the fight instead of getting surgery. Brian
Yeah.
Ortega, that was a pre-existing shoulder injury. Tom Aspinall did the fight instead of getting surgery. Like there's just so
Oh,
much
did
pressure
Tommy
on these
Aspinall have a
guys.
pre-existing knee problem?
Yeah, he talked about it. He kept saying like
Or
he kept saying that he
oh
kept
yeah,
telling
he was saying it
himself
was
I was
locking
gonna
up.
do a
Yeah.
fight. I was gonna get surgery after this fight, but then the UFC would offer him another one, and he's like, "Oh, I'll just put it off," and then it finally like culminated,
So
which is
fucking
just
like that's just
really
retarded. Like
stupid.
that's really stupid. Like that's the thing. I
But
don't
it's the
know,
same
but
thing with
even
Francis
even when it's
Ngannou,
not
dude.
pre-existing, even if it's not pre-existing, you have to kind of wonder. Like, I feel like in sports that have money, like the NBA, NFL, you see these fighters really, or not fighters, these
Athletes,
sports player athletes.
sports
Uh,
players.
they like really fine tuning how much training they're doing, how much stress they're exposing their body to, compared to like how
Right?
much recovery they have before game day. You
Yeah.
know, they really have it down to a science, and they have all these experts around them. I really just think MMA. Problem is like these fighters don't have the money to consult experts and make these decisions correctly.
And it's just like
I
the
think they're like
infrastructure isn't
squeezing.
there.
Yeah,
Like, dude,
that's true. I mean,
all
they
of
don't
the
have a team
UFC
managing them.
athletes talk about like how amazing the PI is. What is it? It's like massage therapy and like a spa with like a
There's
sauna and hot baths.
like a physical therapist there, right? That's
It's like
probably
they
the
like
biggest
go
thing.
crazy over it, and I feel like it's the most basic thing that like a professional athlete should have access to.
That's fair. That's
It's
fair.
like I guess it's free, but still, like the infrastructure just isn't there for a lot of guys.
I don't know. I just don't think like I think these guys' mentality is very old school. Like I have to go into my training camp. I have to squeeze everything I can out of my body to get in shape, like get in
I
tip
mean,
top
yeah, look
shape,
at
and
Darren
then.
Till, dude.
But that's not you're not actually in tip top shape when you're squeezing everything out of your body. Like that's not how it
Yeah,
actually works.
and
This
I
is
think
actually
we're
I
seeing.
actually think like this is the thing that really distinguishes some of the greats
Yeah,
from
exactly.
these guys. Like GSP, he did the exact opposite. Out of camp was conditioning. Out of camp is where he maintained and improved his cardio, his strength, all that stuff.
And where he
In
learned the
camp,
technical stuff.
no, that was in camp. In camp is technique. In camp is here's I'm going to learn these three specific techniques because they're going to be
Here,
effective
one
against my
second.
opponent. Out of camp is where you build the base.
I mean,
And
that's
that
exactly
way,
what I was gonna say. Like we
over
see,
camp, your body's recovered, your joints are recovered, everything is ready to go, and you're fight ready, conditioned and freshly off of like drilling the exact techniques you need to beat this fighter, like solving the problem of your opponent and drilling what you need to do to beat that opponent. It's completely different. Whereas all these guys, it's like they're amateurs, man. They're getting super
Yeah.
fat and out of shape out of camp. 8 weeks before the fight, they're
I
like,
know.
oh my God, I gotta lose 50 pounds, get in shape. Like it's of course your knees blowing out in the
Yeah.
fight, man. It's
Paging
crazy.
Patty
You're
Pimblet.
you're malnourished, you're overtraining, and then you're going into a fight where like the week before you were just going balls to the walls training. Like that's not how you go into
It
a,
is
a day you
just
want to
amateurish,
perform.
dude.
It's not how you peak for a good day.
And I just think like we have to be seeing less and less of that, especially at the top level, when guys are in like that championship level of the sport. It's like when
I
they're in
hope so,
title
yeah.
shot range, and we get more and more of these like super camps where it's like highly dedicated, regimented planning for like every day of their camp. We have to be seeing less of that, but like there
You
is
should
just
be
still a lot of ridiculous stuff happening in this sport that it just
like
hurts the
you can't
athletes and
maintain.
it hurts the quality of their
Yeah, yeah.
performances.
Well, I just think the combination of like the rigor of the training they're doing to get in shape, combined with the malnourishment from like losing so much weight and then the dehydration, all that stuff, like that's a really bad combo. You don't want to combine both hard training and like just undernourishing yourself. And I mean, like I know you can't walk around in like tip top fight shape. You should be 85% of the way there. Camp
Yeah,
should be a
before the camp.
gradual, relatively easy process of getting 100% of the way there.
Yeah.
And just technique, recovery technique, and then the conditioning to do to get to fight shape. That's what it should be. I mean, and you shouldn't cut that much weight, frankly. I mean, you should be nourishing your body. It makes a huge difference, man. It makes a huge fucking difference.
All right, dude. Speaking of technique, we got to talk about Poetan's left hook. Dude, the
Well, who do you think
fucking
is gonna win? It's
killer
pretty
of the
close.
division. What are the
This
odds?
fight's this fight's one of my most anticipated fights. It was second after Oliver Makachev. Now it's
Yeah, most
first,
anticipated
and
here.
yeah, and well, just scheduled, I guess. And I didn't realize like 1.5 weeks, man. That's gonna pass. That's gonna pass pretty quick.
Dude,
I'm
the
excited.
odds Adesanya is pretty much at a minus 170 to 175 favorite, and Pereira is a plus 145 underdog. Dude, honestly, at those odds, I'd put money on Pereira. Plus 145 for Pereira.
I see a plus 136 for Behera on my
Oh
bookie.
yeah, my book. I'm looking at
Yeah.
just like best fight odds, where
All
they
right, fair
have
enough.
all of the different books.
Of course, it's better than my bookie odds. Fucking my bookie. Yeah. I mean, I would bet on. I definitely would not bet. I put it this way: I would not bet on Israel at minus 175.
Yeah,
That's
I
way too
agree.
low for it. Yeah. I mean,
It's
and
just
I think
it's
of
just
yeah.
like it's so weird because I I struggle to think of another fighter who has had this much MMA experience and is still essentially a kickboxer. Like that's just the weirdest thing about this fight to me. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Izzy has so much more MMA experience, but what is he going to bring to the table that he didn't bring to the table against Alex Pereira in their first two fights?
But he trains a lot of jiu-jitsu. He trains a lot of takedown defense. I mean, obviously he's
Okay, that's
playing
what he
to his
trains, but
strengths.
what is he going to bring to the table?
It's his strength, and his primary game plan is always going to be his kickboxing. It always should be his
I'm asking
kickboxing.
you, is he going to use his jiu-jitsu? Is he going to use like his grappling in this? Or is he
I
just going to
don't.
be like, I'm going to show you I'm the better kickboxer?
Well, but that's the thing, right? Like, if there's ever a fight to bring out your grappling, to train takedowns, it's this one.
But dude, I don't even think Izzy's going to like, dude, Pereira's training with Glover Teixeira.
I
Like, I don't
know.
think Izzy's going to have better jiu-jitsu than Pereira. I just don't.
Is it trained with Galvao? Remember?
Galvao. Yeah,
Yeah, Andre Galvao.
I
I mean, it's
guess.
not.
I guess
It's
that's
not
good.
consistent.
Can you think of
It's not
any
like
good
his
grapplers
primary thing.
from CKB? I guess
No, yeah, like
Volkanovski, but he's only half from
the
CKB.
the problem is, yeah, just like the day in day out training partners are different. But I don't know. I guess I just don't know for sure. Like how good his partners are and how relevant that is. I just think like I just don't think he has many advantages in this fight if he doesn't lean on some of his MMA training experience,
Okay,
right? Like he
question
goes
for
into
you.
every fight with such an insurmountable reach and just kickboxing skill advantage. But like this is the fight where that's finally not going to
Yeah,
be the
this is a fight
case
where he
as
doesn't
much.
have that.
So
Okay,
how does he gonna react? Yeah,
question for
exactly.
you though. The biggest difference between this fight and their kickboxing fights, in my opinion, is going to be the clinch. In kickboxing, you can't clinch up. In MMA, like let's be honest, not I don't. If either of them shoots for a takedown, I'm gonna be shocked. Um, but like the biggest difference is that you can clinch up, and I think Alex Pereira has like a ridiculously good clinch game. We saw it against Nikolaitis or whatever, Mikolaitis, that one Greek guy that he just like switch kneed KO'd, and then he also
Was it off of the clinch or was it just
no, it
off of?
wasn't
I
off
thought
of
it
the
was
clinch, but he
countering
had some
a.
pretty good clinch work, like just landing pot shots from the clinch. And can you think of any good clinch game that Izzy's had? Like he has great takedown defense in the clinch. He has good breakaways from the clinch. I don't think he really lands strikes when he's breaking away from
Yeah,
the
he doesn't
clinch.
really throw off elbows.
Like against Jared Cannonier, he
I
was
guess I
literally
don't
held
feel
up
like
against the
either
cage,
one.
going like this to Jared Cannonier's ears. This is like the worst clinch game you can. I'd prefer foot stomps over that.
Well, because then like when they drop to his hips, he always digs a whizzer, like an
But I'm just
overhook.
talking about like offense. Like
Yeah, offense he
digging
doesn't
a
have
wizard
much.
is going
I
to be
agree.
useless against Behera. Behera's not going for a double leg.
No, I know. I'm just saying that's what he was waiting to do against Cannonier. But I don't think that Pereira showing I don't remember Pereira showing a great clinch game either. I guess I just
I mean,
don't remember as a good example of that.
I think he broke Mikolaitis' nose in the clinch, just with like a pop, like a weird little
Rough.
uppercut. I mean, he doesn't have a great clinch game. That's not his bread and butter. But I think that is
I'm
the
mostly
difference.
worried. I'm worried about his cardio against Izzy
Behera,
personally. Yeah,
I just
one because
don't know
he's
if it's
bigger
going
and
to
he
be a
cuts more
problem.
weight, and two, the Bruno Silva fight, he got a little bit gassed
But you
late
see,
second or
is he
third round.
really causing him to gas out? Izzy's not that kind of fighter. Like he
Dude, I
lets his
think it's.
opponents come to him. He
I know, but like when you're, he also just the info overload aspect of it. I feel like that's just hard to keep up with.
yeah,
It's a
that's
5 round
true.
fight too, dude. Izzy's gone 5 rounds and he hasn't even been breathing hard.
Dude,
Like, Izzy has
Behera
stellar
was like
cardio.
a double double weight division champ in Glory Kickboxing. I'm pretty sure like you have to have
I
pretty good cardio
know.
for that too.
Well, of course, but still, like from what we've seen in the MMA context, it's mattered. I mean, we have seen him get tired. We
Right, against
I
Bruno
don't
Silva.
yeah. That's it's just it's different. Like Izzy, he doesn't have Izzy's breathing techniques.
He
He
doesn't
doesn't
do like
go
the
into the
fucking
woods.
anime style
Yeah.
training in the beaches
he
of New
doesn't go
Zealand.
into the woods. Yeah, he doesn't go into the oasis in the middle of the woods and like fucking hold his
I
breath
don't know,
underwater.
man. I just think
Wim
like
Hof.
I I guess to me the biggest difference is I just don't see Izzy pressuring him, so I'm not as concerned about the cardio as you are. And I think really the
Yeah, that's
biggest
fair.
difference is like Pereira's power is just like head and shoulders above Izzy's power. Like Izzy has some pretty good knockout shots, but he needs to set that up perfectly. And let's be honest, like his
But
best knockout
honestly,
shot is like
like
a pullback left hook, which would
Jan was
fucking
saying
suck
that
against
Izzy has
Behera.
good power, though. Jan was kind of saying that
Who?
Izzy has good. Jan
Jan?
Blachowicz.
Oh, Jan
Jan
Blachowicz?
Blachowicz. He was saying Izzy has good power. He was bigger, I guess, in that fight.
Okay, yeah, he has good power, but I'm just talking about like knockouts.
Sure.
Like
Yeah, I
he has
know.
great jabs. He's dropped Whitaker with a jab. I'm sure he like landed some good jabs on Jan. His leg kicks are powerful.
It's also just not in Izzy's style to commit hard as he can
Yeah,
into a
exactly.
shot.
Exactly. Like
And
when people
Poatan
talk
doesn't
about
need to do
power,
that.
it's such a fucking
Yeah.
stupid nebulous stat. Like, how are you
Yeah,
gonna
that's why. Dude,
quantify
talking
power?
about power and chin are my two least favorite parts of MMA.
Well,
That's
I
why.
like talking about chin, but it's more
Well,
like
it's
even
just
in
because
chin,
there's so many
it's more of
factors, dude.
recoverability, right?
It's a placement. It's recover. Yeah, it's like shot
It's
placement,
like
how
how
much
well
you
you
saw the
can
shot
take the
coming,
shot.
and then
Like,
also
can
just
you
like yeah,
roll
your
with
opponent's
it?
recoverability. Yeah,
Can you
exactly. Like it's a
recover
lot,
from
lot of
it?
things.
Like to me, when I say someone has a good chin, it means they get hit and they're not phased at all. If a guy gets dropped and gets back up, oh wow, he has great recoverability. I'm not gonna call that chin.
Yeah, sure.
And then power, it's so stupid too because it's all about like how clean the shot is, like how strong you are. That doesn't even really factor into knockouts, like your strength. It's just dumb. Like how good the technique is, how quick you're
Yeah,
able
it
to
is.
throw it, where it
It's also like how
lands.
well you're able to hide it. Like if your opponent doesn't see shots coming,
Yeah,
he's not going to
exactly.
be braced. He's not going to brace his
Because you
traps. He's not
need
going to
to make
brace
your
his
opponent
back.
take the shot badly. And I think
Yeah,
that's why Alex Pereira's hook that he knocks so many people out with is so good because literally
he
people
just
don't
hides
see it
it.
coming. Yeah, people do
Exactly.
not. And dude, also, so people don't see it coming. I like the UFC just put out a video on like his knock. I don't know how they got the rights to glory, but I guess they have his fights.
Oh, really? I should watch
So,
that.
dude, he literally just like hides it in combinations. His timing with it is so weird too. He'll like throw a combination and then like wait a half second and then like bring in the hook. Perfect form, perfect timing, is able to hide it with different combinations. And also, dude, literally every time it connects, it's on the perfect spot. It's like
Exactly.
right on
It's
the
just
end of your
it's
jaw. It's like pressing a lever that just spins your head like maximally.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
right on the tip of the jaw. So you get like the maximal torque of
yeah,
turning the
yeah,
head
yeah.
and rattling the brain. It's like you cannot design a better left hook than that. It's literally the perfect left hook.
But I also think that Izzy is smart enough and understands kickboxing enough that he's gonna always be defending against that left hook. Like he's not gonna give Alex the opportunity to throw it.
Dude, I was shitting on Jan versus Sean O'Malley for like potentially being a boring fight where they just like pick at each other with strikes.
Yeah,
Purely off of Sean O'Malley's fight against Pedro Munoz, to be honest.
yeah,
I
fair.
reserve the right to get excited against Izzy versus Pereira and say it's going to be Gastelum versus Izzy 2.0
Dude,
with a
I
knockout,
was
with a
I was
knockout,
not
dude.
agreeing with your Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan take because of the opposite side. Like Peter Yan has had really, really good fights against these similar builds and like similar types of fighters like Corey
Yeah,
Sandhagen. And this fight, I don't know, man. I just think it's gonna be point fighting, leg kicks,
I mean that was my
jabs. Like
original take, but like
how, and I'm still excited for it. It's weird because like
I
I
just
feel like
think
I'm
Pereira has I think he has the tools to hurt Izzy, and we haven't seen Izzy hurt in such a long time that I'm like getting super hyped for it. Like I think if anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna
well,
be
yeah.
Pereira. Like
That's why I'm excited. That's
Whitaker
why I'm
can win a
excited.
decision over Izzy any day of the week. I think like he's 50-50 with Izzy, but I don't
I
think he has the
agree.
tools needed to hurt Izzy. And I don't think Izzy has the tools needed to hurt Whitaker. It's going to be
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. I agree.
just a point
That's
fighting
true. That's true.
match. But these
This is the
guys,
only guy who can hurt Izzy, who can like really put Izzy in trouble. Not win a decision, not win a point fight. Like he has the tools to make Izzy almost quit or like almost get
right.
knocked out.
Yeah. And
It's
dude, like
different.
even if
Yeah.
Izzy just goes like sits behind a game plan of like taking out Alex Pereira's legs, I'm going to be fascinated with that. Seeing like how Pereira tries to deal with these leg kicks that are coming in at Izzy. If
Right.
Izzy like is actually hurting him with leg kicks, I think that's still going to be exciting.
That's the thing. Like lately, I just feel like Izzy has been landing leg kicks, but they've been having no effect.
Exactly,
Against
dude. Against
Whitaker, that's what I
Cannon.
felt like.
Yeah, and against Cannonier, they had no effect either.
And I feel like Alex is going to be like, that's fine. I don't care what the judges. I'm going to let your leg kicks through, but I'm going to punish you every time you try to throw one
And if he
because they're
doesn't
doing
set up
nothing
those
to.
leg
And
kicks,
yeah,
dude, he's
exactly,
gonna get countered every fucking leg kick
exactly,
that he
dude.
throws.
That's what I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for the anticipation. I'm excited for the fact that I feel like Alex is his best challenger to date and only real challenge in the division on that respect. Like, not can I cheese a win, but can I really decisively hurt you and finish you? And so that's why I'm excited for it. But I'm still preparing for a point fighting match
Yeah, I
for the
know.
most part.
If they're like gun shy, just like trading jabs, not throwing a lot. I mean, dude, it
Basically, I
can't
think
be worse
it's
than Esparza versus Rose. And Esparza's fighting
no, it
right
can't be.
before them. So
But
our
that was
palate
so
is going to be
bad it got good.
cleansed by that
That
fight.
was so bad it got good. Like that was
Dude,
funny.
that was a
That
bad
was
fight. BAD, broken and delirious fight.
that was a broken and delirious fight.
That fight was, dude. I almost want to see a rematch of that, like before Izzy versus Pereira. I remember when that fight happened, and people were like, "Where do we go from? Where do we go from here?" And then they're like, "Let's just do a rematch. We have to." That fight was so non-conclusive. And then people are like, "Are you fucking insane? You tell Dana White to book a rematch."
Yeah. I did not want to be the guy who booked that, who like goes to Dana White and is like, you know what?
I think Rose deserves another shot at the title. Oh man. All right, let's just quickly run over next week's fights and then call it.
Sounds good.
Just because there are a few good ones. Or a few good ones.
There are a couple good ones. I mean, the main event's good. Neil Magny versus D-Rod is good. This was just because D-Rod's always like
Who do you got in that fight, by the way?
interesting.
Magny or D-Rod? Apparently they're like dead even in terms of odds.
Yeah, I mean that's not surprising to me. I think I'm gonna go with D-Rod just because, like,
Yeah.
man, it's been a while since I've seen Magny really hurt anyone, and then D-Rod has power.
I mean, he spiked that one guy on his head. He spiked Max Griffin on his head.
That's different, like in the shots though. Yeah.
Max Griffin is definitely not.
And I just think like
material.
I think D-Rod's fundamentally sound enough that he's not going to be like confused by Neil Magny's awkward style. He's going to be able to find
I
his
definitely
shots.
agree.
So.
And I think D-Rod has a good enough anti-wrestling style that he doesn't get tied up by Neil Magny. We have
exactly.
Tagir Ulanbekov taking on Nathan Manis. Interestingly enough,
Dude,
Nathan Manis
Nathan
fought
Manis,
Umar Nurmagomedov, and now he's fighting Tagir Ulanbekov. And
Why? Why is this guy just like the guy is getting fed till the rush?
And then you have Tagir,
What did he
who
do?
lost to Tim Elliott in his last fight, even though, it's like
Yeah,
really
I
close
know.
fight, debatable that Tagir might have won it, but what you gonna do?
Apparently he went in injured or something.
And then lost two great fights in Jailton Almeida versus Maxim Grishin, Bryce Mitchell versus Movsar Evloev.
God, Jailton Almeida. I don't know why there's no push behind
Dude, it's
Jailton Almeida.
crazy.
It's crazy because he's like the most exciting
He's the full
prospect I've ever
package,
seen.
dude. And he
I know,
just
dude.
looks in.
He got the
He's like
bod
the
and
most
everything,
insane
dude.
physique in the UFC. Like, get out of the way, Pablo Costa.
I know, dude. If you want to like just go pure roidedness, dude, that guy is out of his mind. But yeah, I don't know why like the UFC isn't pushing him. I'm always really excited to see his name. It's crazy to me.
And then the prelims don't really have anything that interesting. Derek Minner, the guy who fought Ryan Hall, is fighting
Yeah, that guy's like
Shah Yalan. 38-10. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of fights.
It's true. He's only 28 years old, dude.
Dude, holy crap! He must have done
The
a ton of
Asians.
fights in like China or something. Who do you got in the main event? Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos.
Oh god, Jinyu Frey is fighting. Oh fuck. I don't want to see Jinyu Frey. This fight card sucks balls, dude.
Dude, the
All right.
prelims suck, but there's like two good
Yeah,
fights
the main
on the main
card's
card.
All right. I also don't know why like they're so insistent on doing these cookie cutter fight cards where it's like you're just waiting to see 3 good fights. Anyway, whatever. I'll stop complaining. Rodriguez versus Lemos.
Lemos.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, dude,
They're
I think
both,
I'm gonna
like,
skip the prelims for next week.
Yo, let's watch
just
them on.
nothing.
We'll just watch the fights on Sunday.
I just don't even want to watch the prelims of these, though.
Well, yeah, that's fine. But like, regardless, skip the commercials and all that shit.
Yeah,
Anyway,
sure.
dude, who you got? I don't know, it's a hard one.
Apparently, Marina Rodriguez only lost to Carla Esparza. She's 16-1-2. Oh man, they're both 35. I thought Marina Rodriguez was younger than that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got Marina. Like, she fought.
She looked really good.
Michelle Watterson over 5 rounds, beat her. She fought Yan Xiaonan over 3 rounds, beat her. She fought Mackenzie Dern over 5 rounds, beat her. She's just way more main event experience than Amanda Lemos. Also, like, they're both primarily strikers, and I don't see Amanda Lemos having like a better striking IQ than Marina Rodriguez.
Did Lemos look kind of shitty against Angela Hill? I gotta say.
She also looked kind of shitty against Michelle Waterson Gomez.
She got a submission in the
Well,
second
yeah,
round.
she
Though?
got a
I didn't
submission,
remember
but
that.
that's because she was like getting taken down.
Oh, okay.
I think she had more power than Waterson Gomez, but I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I don't know. It's hard to really care too much, but I got Rodriguez.
Yeah, me too. Chase Sherman, Josh Parisian. Loser gets
Heavyweight,
cut from the UFC.
heavyweight
Dude,
fight.
this is a BAD fight, man. The
Yeah, the
heavyweights,
heavyweights are the classic
dude,
BAD
Chubby
fights.
I am just like so into. Dude, did you watch? Let me ask you. Did you watch last week's fight against Jared Vandera's fight last week?
No, dude, I didn't even.
Dude, if you wanna, I kind of want to tell you to watch it because it's honestly the worst fight I've ever seen.
Dude, when I move to the Bay Area, I'll have some weed handy for these fights. I just feel like
Dude,
kidding.
what is
watch it
can
anyway.
you think off the top of your head the worst fight you've ever seen?
Um,
I guess like Carlos
well,
Barza
it's
versus
hard
Rose, but that
though.
was just so
But that no,
surreal.
that loops around though. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
thing. It's some point that
like
loops around.
that got into a surreal moment. Like I remember
Yeah, it
the
really did.
commentary just went silent for like a few minutes in like the
Well, it
third or
was just
fourth round.
the craziest thing is you'd be seeing the fight stats and be like 35 strikes attempted to like 50 strikes attempted, and you're looking at the fight like, are you watching the same fight I'm watching? Like, what are you going on about?
Okay, but like, man, I'm trying to think. What is the worst fight? I mean, I'm sure there are fights that I've seen where I'm like, oh, both of these guys just suck. Like they're both making so many mistakes. But just recency bias, dude. Walto Cortez Acosta versus Jared Vandera, fucking
Yeah,
horrible.
dude.
It's not
Dude,
even so bad
I
it's
gotta
good.
watch it now.
It's just so
Oh,
bad
really?
that it's
It is
like
bad. It's bad.
bad.
I gotta watch it now, dude.
Yeah, I know. God damn. Hey, at least Waldo is undefeated. Also a cool name, Waldo. Anyway, I think that's enough. Next week, a few good fights to look forward to, and then after that is pay-per-view week. I'm actually looking forward to some of the trash talk here. Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler should be good trash talk, and Izzy Pereira already looking pretty good. Not to mention Dan Hooker's on the card.
Oh, come on. Oh, yeah, that clip you sent me was so fucking good.
Dude, it is
Is he,
so good.
he's so like the clip is for the viewers. Is he standing against the wall and the guy is throwing tennis balls at him and his
He's
job
like,
is to dodge them.
"Whoo."
They dodge them,
Whoo.
except the tennis balls are like
Yeah.
5 feet away, like,
It's
and
not
this
even
is like
close
dramatically
to him.
dodging for like.
I don't know if that was supposed to be real training or a joke.
Well, and then in response, Alex Behera throws out a video and just him like standing, just bouncing around Street Fighter style,
Yeah.
and the guy's like throwing tennis balls
Just,
off
like,
around him,
completely
and he's just
missing.
standing still.
Dude, it is such a good response. Like, I think Alex Behera is a low-key, like,
Good.
funny guy and just a savage guy in general, too. Like, what was he saying? He's like, oh, I don't watch cartoons. In Brazil, we don't watch cartoons. When he's asked about, like, anime or, like, some shit like that for Izzy.
Yeah.
Dude, it's fucking great. Actually
Dude, really-
great.
He kind of reminds me of Islam. Like he like does like archery in his free time and shit. Sweet.
Dude, that's so funny. What is UFC 282? Oh, Yuri versus Glover? Dude, what the fuck? God damn, dude. UFC 282 is such a weird card. I don't even know what to say. All right, well, that's enough for this week. Thanks if anyone was tuning in. And we'll see you for the fights.